You are all duly warned. Not only are you being live streamed, you are being recorded. So act accordingly. Okay. Good evening, happy New Year. So last time, we're still looking at the evening service. So if you want to get yourself a prayer book, you're welcome to. Everything we're going to look at in the class is in the packet in front of you. But if you want to see it in the book you use, that's always good too. Last time we really talked about how do you get into a prayer space. You know, sometimes you don't have 3 hours on Shabbos morning. Sometimes you have 10 minutes on a Tuesday night, right? And how are you going to get into? Is that enough time to be open?
I don't think so, because the front door wasn't open either.
Really? How'd you get in?
I had a key.
How's everyone else been getting in?
Right fixed stage, double to the front door.
Oh,
Excellent security measures.
high level of technology.
Code R.
Yes.
Show.
Next week we'll work on the wheel. All right. So look, Judaism, we have a legitimate complaint. And the complaint is, I go to Minyan and I don't feel anything. Okay? So I go to Minyan and I don't feel anything. And so last time we talked about how do you step into a prayer space and how do you get yourself really as quickly as possible into that place of prayer. And there's a few things that I just beg of you to be really focused and serious with yourself when you come into the prayer space, because I can ruin your prayer experience, but I can't make your prayer experience, right? So in the absence of a prayer experience, I'll stand up here and I'll talk. And sometimes I've got some really interesting things to say because it comes from a really interesting and deep tradition. But that's not prayer. Right? Prayer is at its core, unapologetically, talking to the one divine being who created and runs the universe, largely for our benefit, out of love and goodwill. There is a God, okay? The primary purpose of prayer is to connect with that divine being who already knows you, right? That's the whole point. The divine being, God, Hashem, Adonai, Elohim, Eloheinu. But wait, it might be him. I have this. Yes, I have this fear that I'm going to push God to voicemail. He's not going to call back. It's an irrational fear, I know. But we are trying to form a kesher. We're trying to form a connection. Prayer is a form of communication. Okay, it's an interchange, but we're only hearing and active on one side of it. Right. So, you know, I remember once, I don't know what it was, but there was a story, it was an old time movie, and somebody was told, somebody didn't know what a telephone was, but they were told, if you speak into it, they'll hear you, your children will hear you, right? And this concept that just on faith, this person who had never met a telephone could speak and they would hear, and how meaningful that was. In a world where that didn't exist ever before. If they were gone, they were gone. But you have this ability now to talk and not know, not hear back, nothing, just on faith alone, that they were going to hear what you had to say, and then what the old man said to his children. Right? So that's us. We're on this side of that box that is completely unintelligible to us. It doesn't really match our actual experience of how communication works. And yet on good faith, you know, when we speak, we will speak with the understanding that we are being heard, which on one level is so overblown to describe it that way, because once you get there, you realize, well, he's listening to everything all the time, aware of everything all the time, what's in me and what comes out, right? So then what is it, right? So on the one step, I have this desire to communicate, but on the other hand, what I'm really doing is I'm speaking in a way that's almost a presentation. I am deciding what about myself I want to present to the God of the universe, who already knows all the stuff that I'm selecting from. So it's not like I'm standing up here and saying, I stole something when I was a kid, and you need to know that. I'm going to tell you where you don't know that, or I did something really good, and I'd like to get some credit. It's not new information to God, but how we decide to talk to the ultimate power and purpose and love of the universe says a lot about who we are. Says everything about who we want to be. And it says everything about what we love and who we love if we make it a conversation between us and then also about other people. And there's some talking that I can do with God that I can't do with anybody else. I can't do with my wife, my children, my colleagues, my friends. I can't. There's stuff inside all of us that you would never say out loud or really let it rip, right? Because there's other considerations. So we start with this: who I'm going to talk to, who I'm going to talk with, is not an it, but a who, and is the place where I can put all of that, everything. God can take everything. And it's not an insult, and it's not shaming, it's all the stuff that God put in me, I'm putting back together. Somebody gives you a gift, right? What does Miss Manners say you're supposed to do? It's a hat. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to put it on. You weren't taught that? I don't know, maybe that's my upbringing. In the world that I grew up in, if you're given a gift, you open it, hold it up, you admire it, you let people see it, if it's clothing, put it on. Right? Now, obviously, underwear, socks, that's not be said. So now let's back off and let's say, my life is a gift. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Sometimes it really does. Doesn't matter. All of it's a gift. And it's a unique gift. It's a gift that never has been and never will be. It is absolutely stunning as a work of art. I don't always look in the mirror and go, "Ooh, I'm stunning as a work of art." But I am. I am absolutely stunning as a work of art. I am God's fine handiwork. Okay? And so I have to stand up every once in a while, and I have to turn to the one who gave me this gift, and I have to say, wow. Thank you for this gift, whatever it is today, right? And it's a boorish person who says, I have no use for this. I don't really appreciate this. It's ugly, right? And I know that we have real psychological times in our lives, and depending on how God made you, those may be more intense or more deep or periodic or manic or all the other things that can happen as well. It's all part of this picture. There has to be an embrace of it, of who I am. And when I stand in prayer, I'm actually in contact with the one who made me this way. And I get to ask why, but I don't get to only ask why. Right? I get to ask what, I get to ask for whom. Ideally, I not only say thank you, I say, what can I do? How do I use this thing? Imagine opening a box and it looks amazing, but you have no idea what it is. Right? What do I do with it? And that's who we are. What do I do with this? And all of that. So I started when people were wandering in by saying on Saturday morning, you've got 2.5 hours. The first 30 minutes, if you come on time, is meditative poetry, right? There's no excuse not to get yourself into a thoughtful, deep, meditative, metaphorical frame of mind on Saturday morning. Because all you have to do is come at 9:15, right? If you come at 10:30, nothing in the service is built to help you get to that place. Because the service presumes you're already there, right? So if you walk in, and what we're doing is opening up these giant doors and taking out some jingle jangle things and walking around the room with them, singing loudly, right? And then we put it down and someone in the front of the room starts talking at you. It is impossible to get into a prayerful frame of mind. It's actually designed not to do that because that's not what that's about. That's about something else. Prayerful state of mind on Saturday morning only happens in Pesukei Dezimra. But you have time. When you come to the evening service, how are you going to get there? Because you could do 3 Mari's in 1 Pesukei Dezimra. Right? Mari is 7 minutes. 10 if we take our time. 15 if we pretend that we started on time. Right? That's about what it is. And it's because it's the Shema, which we're going to cover, the Amidah, which we're going to look at next time, and then this extra prayer called Aleinu, which got drops down on it, so that people could say Akadosh. That's it. It's a whole story. So how do you get there? So last time we talked about the Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu is a command that has to do with acknowledging. But remember, there's that sentence before it. God is merciful and won't rage on us. And that sense of humility and presence and willing to trustingly stand in front of the one who probably should from time to time rage on us for what we've done. Right? I've certainly done and said things that deserve strong review. I've never met anyone who didn't. I call them not my finest moments. Right? And we're willing to stand in front of that. And that takes a lot of character, it takes a lot of poise. You have to be willing to stand in front of accountability and not a mirror. I mean genuine accountability. And let that live with you in your prayer life. Right? Da lifnei mi ata omed is on many arms. Who are you standing in front of? We're standing in front of the maker of heaven and earth, of all that is seen and unseen. So you're there, and you do your Baruch Hu, and you sit down. At this point, there should be no talk. The Shema, the rabbis created as a space of zero talking. They actually have a Mishnah where they say, if somebody says good morning to you in the middle of your Shema, you should not respond. Because they really want you focused. So why is this so important? Turn on this at page 4, unit 2. The problem with what happens next in Jewish prayer, and which is why we are often so frustrated that we didn't feel anything when we went to Minyan, is that this evening service does not give you a Pesukei Dezimra. This evening service is designed to check 2 boxes. I said the Shema, I said the Amidah. And if you're a mourner, I said Kaddish. The service is designed to simply check those boxes. It's not designed for a lot of contemplation. And that's a frustration. And sometimes people say, Rabbi, why did it go so fast? Or why did the prayer leader go so fast? And they want enough time to finish the Amidah. And that's a good thing. And we've been working at that. I don't know if you've noticed. We tried to slow the Amidah down, tried to give people more time, work in progress. Ultimately, however, the frustration is that the Amidah is maybe not also going to give you what you're looking for, right? The Shema immediately says, and now that you have that beautiful sense of attention and communication in the Baruch Hu, you got to that point, you got to that place very quickly, that's amazing, you sat down, you opened the book, and now I'm going to flood you with paragraphs full of information. So you have really two choices. Work on the information so that it comes more naturally, and you're being less cerebral about it, and more prayerful as you work your way through it, so that it's invoking its ideas in you, and you're coming up with personal relationships with those words. So when it says, you know, you give the rainy season and you cause things to grow and all those things, that you can actually, your mental mind, your mind's eye can drift to those images in the world as you pray. That would be amazing. I'm successful at that probably 2% of the time. 90% of the time I'm reading the words because I'm checking the box. The other 8% of the time someone's talking. And I have to respond to them. I'm not going to do it although I'm supposed to. So I'm not really getting there all the time. I'm almost never. Sometimes I don't. That's the ideal. You get to that place where the imagery of the words and the ideas are working in your own experience and imagination in a way that it is meaningful and personal and pure, and you can get to it. And then when you sing the Shema, it's like a catharsis of that. It's an outflowing of those images and that feeling that you've developed inside. It's very high level prayer. It's very difficult. I encourage everyone to work on it. The other thing you can do is you can not read the words. Shocking, right? You can not be on the page that I call. You can take that time and go to where you need to be. Why did you come? Why do you want prayer? Why do you want to talk to God? What is it in you that needs uplift and meaning and inspiration and purpose and a groundedness that comes from the bones of the universe? That I'm not just a drip. What is it in you that wants to hold on to something that is on that level? Go to it. Don't turn the page. If you've got that in your head and your heart, that is the most important thing happening in the room. There's a Hasidic legend about the Lamed Vav, you know, the 36 righteous souls. And there's a lot of different versions of it, but usually there's somebody who's misbehaving in a sacred space. And the Rebbe doesn't rebuke them. And afterwards people come up and say, how can you possibly allow that to happen? And the Rebbe says, one of the 36 hidden souls was here. And our redemption and the world's maintenance depends only on those 36 hidden souls. And not even they know who they are, right? So that if you're doing that in the room, we've trained you to believe that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? We have such a skill-based thing with this Hebrew and this structure and this ritual that it breeds guilt. We have a prayer system that makes people feel guilty. That's terrible. It doesn't have to be that way. It's okay. Nobody around you is judging you to feel that way, but we feel that way. I know what that feels like. I walked into the synagogue as a 27-year-old who didn't know alphabet. I was completely in over my head. No clue what was happening. Right? And I felt like this big a lot. And I learned some things. I didn't realize that I still wasn't doing that right. and then I discovered that I felt this big. There's something about getting it right, which is important, but also it makes us feel like if we're not what we think is perfect, then we're bad. And you have to let that go, let that go. If you're in a synagogue or you're in a minyan and you're trying to communicate with God and you're not disturbing anyone around you, you're doing the right thing. If you can find it in a word, stay with a word. If you find it in a thought, stay with the thought. If you can't find it, close the book, hold it in your hand, close your eyes. If you can stand when they stand and sit when they sit, that's not disruptive, great. But if that's getting in the way of your prayer, stay seated or stand up. If I come in late to shul and I want to be checking my boxes and doing anything, and I'm on the Amidah during the third aliyah, guess what I do? I stand up and I do my Amidah. And we have a little choreography that will indicate to people, oh, he's doing his Amidah. But I'm finding my prayers. So the Shema, it has 3 ideas in the morning, and then it has an additional idea in the evening. The 3 ideas in the morning, the 3 paragraphs of the Shema, are love, creation, and redemption. Love is exhibited by our love for each other with God, which is exhibited by mitzvot, right? Don't tell me that you love me, show me that you love me. A good marriage is based in deeds that demonstrate love. That's the relationship. So you'll see, you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, and so on. Immediately turns into mitzvot. Okay? So that's love. Love is action. I recognize that you have demanded action of me, and in my love, I am eager to perform those deeds. I want to do. And that started earlier in the lesson when I said, I am a gift constructed by God with the implication for a purpose. How do I use this gift properly? What can I do with this gift to demonstrate my gratitude? So that's Vahavta. It's a paragraph of love that comes from the obligations of receiving love and eliciting love and returning love. I am someone who can love. Even if I'm alone, even if I have lost, right? Even if my love relationships don't bring me joy, I can love. I am lovable and I can love. That's the you start with this. And if you don't believe it, say it every night. Because somebody who's been around a lot longer than you and knows a lot more than you disagrees with your lack of faith in your ability to give and receive. Just like you can breathe, you can love. It's in there. So that's what it is. We start with love, right? Which is why I get so angered when people are like, the angry God of the Old Testament, you know, as opposed to the new Christian God of love. Right? That is bogus. The God of our Torah and the God of Jewish life is deeply associated with love. Love is our starting point for every service of the Shema, which is the only biblically commanded prayer that we're supposed to say, and we're supposed to say it morning and night.
With love.
With love.
How love? Shema.
Yeah.
We have to say Shema with love.
We have to say Shema with love. It's commanded.
How do you command love?
How do you command gratitude? How do you command sorrow? You're commanded to weep on Tisha B'Av. I get to have expectations of more than behavior. We're not just a behavioral religion, you know, what Schulweis called pots and pantheism, right? It's not just about behavior. It has to be about emotion, or it falls victim to some of those anti-Semitic criticisms of Judaism as a religion of law that is hollow and bereft of a heart and a soul. That is not us, right? So we train ourselves to love, right? How you know, do you love me? Right? In some ways, I know this is not popular in the Harlequin
That
aisle.
isn't training, I'm saying we're commanded,
In the Harlequin aisle, right, this would be unpopular. I do believe that a large part of love and almost all of mature, enduring, long-term love is a choice. The choice. You can have your heart broken and you can get what Bambi called being Twitter pated in the springtime. Right? Old Disney movie fans. But ultimately, there's a choice. Love is about enduring commitment. It's not just an emotion. And the enduring commitment is the more profound side of it. But I see it that way. I think love is connected to actions and enduring commitment.
use communication too.
Yeah.
When communication applies, at least my understanding, two ways.
A giver and a receiver.
Yeah.
And I'm receiving divine communication in the words and the Torah and the breathing of the sunlight. I'm receiving constantly. We are
open.
I believe I'm aware of it. I believe there are people who are unaware of it or have chosen to negate it because of whatever intellectual decisions they've made, but that doesn't mean it's not coming at them. It's coming at them all the time. They don't see it that way. Right? But Judaism sees it this way. Like, I don't need to defend it. I've got thousands of years of lived Jewish life that testifies to this. Right? I embrace it. I don't need to prove this because I'm not inventing it. I'm embracing it. I like the world that we use. So love is the first part, and love is connected to action. So, you know, it's interesting, children are commanded to love their parents, commanded to honor and respect. That implies obey. We'll get to that when we get to the Shema itself. The next paragraph is creation. How about the one with second? First one's creation. Okay, so the other one is creation before we say Shema, which is God turns the seasons and the lights and the stars, right? So we have this concept that things are changing. Now in the evening, when we talk about God changing the light, rolling is the word, this kind of stuff. This idea that God's Ma'ariv Aravim, that's the bracha, who is turning the evenings over into evenings. It has to do with this concept of a cyclicalness of it, of a process, that time is passing and time is fleeting. And so God of creation is a God of change and a God of time. So what is the most powerful force in the universe? People like to say gravity. Superman. Time. Right? You can try and defy gravity for short periods of time, but you cannot defy time for short periods of gravity. It doesn't work. Time is incessant, and God driving that forward can be a terrifying thing. I know we're in our last 2 minutes. Speaking of time, can be a terrifying thing. We can be afraid of time. Our mortality is wrapped up in not knowing how much time we have, or worse, being told how much time you have. You have to embrace that as well. That's the next thing. That's the next moment of creature mortality, as Rudolf Otto used to talk about it in a wonderful 18th century philosophical book called The Idea of the Holy. A sense of creature createdness, creature mortality. That I live in the face of my own mortality, not in a morose way or a morbid way, but in an aware way. I will be aware today that I will die. That makes these next 15 seconds the last time I'll have a chance to use these 15 seconds. And sometimes it's mundane, sometimes I just put my feet up and I read something stupid. A lot of it's spent going to the bathroom, right? Not every minute has to be worthy of a Nobel Prize. And wasting time can be a good thing in moderation. But God is the mover of time is the next thing that we need to be aware of if we're really going to be prayerful. So we start with the Baruch Hu, accountability. We move into the awareness of time, which is my mortality, but is also expressed in the prayer as nature. Right? God is the creator of nature and time. So it has within it sun rises as much as sun sets. And it has leaves falling as much as sprouts growing. And that motion of time. So wherever I am in my motion of time, if I'm in a moment of darkness, the light is coming. If I'm in a moment of light, the darkness is coming. That is all part of the constancy of God doing things for us. And I can be present as time goes, and that's okay. It's not only okay, it's amazing. It's a gift, because it's only in that time that we find the things of me. Watching children grow, watching the face of my beloved grow wrinkles, right? Experiencing things and memories, building things that may last, enjoying a moment. Those are all possible by the thing that also defines our mortality. If you want the one, you got to get the other. You can't take them away from each other. So now we've got that. So you've got two quick paragraphs that if you just blow through them, you're not going to be there when you're asked to do the opposite of shut up and listen. You're asked to speak up and listen. Speak up and listen as we sing Shema together. Right? And that moment is so hard to hold those two opposite things in your kavanah, in your intentionality. But you have to try. You have to sing the Shema while hearing the other people sing the Shema. And if you've done choir practice, you have an advantage because you know how to match your voice within the harmony of the other voices. And that's what's supposed to happen in this prayer moment, is that you're telling everybody else to listen while you are trying to hear them. And then the last thing is, the Shema there really doesn't mean listen at all. It almost means hear in a command form, but the best English word for it is heed, H-E-E-D. And if you translate Shema throughout the book of Deuteronomy as the word heed, every time you see it, the text will come alive in a way that it otherwise doesn't. That's what it really means. It means heed. Listen in a way that is obligating you to something. All right, and we'll kind of stop it there and see if you can hold on to a Baruch Hu that is standing up to be accountable for everything that has happened that was in your control. A Ma'ariv Aravim that puts you into a place of mortality as time passes with its gifts. An Ava that is seeking for what you should be doing in life and committing yourself to acts of holiness. And then see if you can speak and hear at the same time. And we'll pick up next time there. Fair enough? Take the last question if someone has it.